on. There he is.
How are you?
Can you hear me
Yeah.
okay? All right,
Can you hear me?
good. Hi, yes, I can. Everybody, this is Representative Greg Landsman from Ohio's 1st District, right?
Yeah. First Congressional District, Southwest Ohio, Cincinnati.
I'm so delighted to have you here. I'm really glad to talk to you. I've been seeing you all over the place. You've been making the rounds, talking to a lot of people, which I really appreciate, and I think people in general really appreciate. It's nice for us to get to know our congressional representatives a little bit outside of the press conference.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was telling a reporter today because she was asking why so many of us are doing, YouTube shows and working with influencers or podcasts, and it sort of struck me in that moment that it's almost identical to showing up where people are in the district, but on the internet. So, when we go home, we try to do town halls or community conversations, go to schools, factories, a tour of factory, meeting people, quote unquote, where they are
Yeah.
back home. And then appreciating that that's true too, in terms of, all of us spending some part of our lives on the internet somewhere. Like there are podcasts that I like, or there are influencers that I follow. There are YouTube shows that I, or my my kids get into, and showing up there too is the same. It's like, you're just showing up where
Yeah.
people are.
Absolutely. And I have actually heard it argued that this is I mean, I think we're in a very interesting, pivotal turning point time. That Biden's term, there was a great article about this. Biden's term was actually the end of the TV era
Yeah.
officially. And that now we're just, young people especially are just not going to look for politicians on TV because they're not watching TV that way. So this is the interface now.
Yeah. I mean, I still think that, cable and local news is important, and we do a lot of that, but more and more people get their news, their entertainment and news from the internet. And that does mean you have to sort of think of the internet like a planet, and you got to go out and explore it,
Yeah.
right? Like, in everyone is somewhere on that planet, and they've, not everybody, but most people have sort of settled into habits. Like, this is what I do each day or throughout the week. These are the podcasts I listen to when I, get in bed. Here are the shows I check in on, or these are the influencers that pop up in my feed.
Right.
And I think the more you sort of transition into having that be a part of your communication strategy, the better it is for everyone, because we have to do a better
Mm.
job telling our story and why our policies are better.
Yeah.
And not just why this is a disaster, what we're seeing
Mm.
with Trump and congressional Republicans who are just following along, obeying Trump in a way that's detrimental to their own constituents. We have to also say, here's how we're going to fix things. This is what we believe is the best way to make life better and build a stronger country and make people safer. And that does mean you got to build relationships with people in real life and on the internet.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I
The
use
vision.
the word internet just as a way of, like, I don't know, it's the encompassing word for
Uh-huh.
me. But like Instagram, TikTok,
All of
all of
it.
it.
Podcast land. And yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think that Democrats have fallen short in bringing a vision forward of where we want to go, the Project 2028, if you will. And
Yeah.
it's great as I'm having these conversations to hear so many lawmakers really talking about, no, we really need to pivot away from what we've been doing. That really isn't working. And here are some ideas. Obviously, first we need to get through the mess that we're in. And I know it's been a quiet and slow week for you and everybody in Congress. So you're on the Energy and Commerce Committee. So you're really deep in the heart of this Medicaid fight. I think a lot of people are sort of learning civics as we go here, that weirdly Energy and Commerce, which sounds like it has nothing to do with healthcare, is where the big healthcare battle is happening.
Yeah,
So
so
talk
energy
about
and
that.
commerce is essentially the best way for Congress to describe everything in the world,
Right.
or that we do in the country, like, that isn't national security related, It doesn't have to do with farmers, but everything essentially is in energy and commerce, and including, how healthcare is managed in this country, and so Medicaid is in our jurisdiction, and what they are proposing
Mm,
and is a $715 billion cut to Medicaid, on top of a $380 billion cut to the ACA. So it's a total of over $1 trillion in healthcare cuts, and about 14 million Americans will lose their health insurance.
right.
Um, the reason they're doing it is to pay for part of their $4 trillion tax cut plan.
Yep.
So this started not because they wanted to find waste, fraud, and abuse, or they wanted to, as they're saying, protect Medicaid for the people who deserve it.
Yeah.
That's their
I know.
line.
Yeah, that's their line.
That there are people who deserve health care, and then there are people who don't deserve it.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
That's where they've landed as a party, and uh, they did it because they were given an assignment. The assignment was, we have to pay for some of the tax cuts, which overwhelmingly benefit the wealthy and big
Yeah.
corporations. Um, and you need to find $880 billion. And they said to the Agriculture Committee, you need to find $300 billion. And so they decided, against every Democratic objection,
Yeah.
to take $230 billion away from the food assistance program,
Yeah. Snap.
and SNAP, and they literally, part of the way they're going to do it is they're saying, if you're 7 or I think 8 years old, or you lose your benefit. Like, if you have somebody there at home, but you're now 8, you don't get SNAP.
Oh,
Yeah. um which is, it's a couple dollars a week. It's not, I mean, it's enough to buy food.
right.
Anyways, in energy and commerce, we have Medicaid, and so they cut $715 billion out of Medicaid. I can get into how they're doing it, but it's $715 billion in funding cuts, which the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office said would mean about 8 million people will be kicked
Hmm.
off of Medicaid. They'll lose their health insurance.
Yeah. 8.6, right? And then
Yeah.
another, if I understand correctly, when they let those ACA tax credits expire at the end of the year, which they don't have to let them expire. They're choosing to. That's another 5 million people or 4 million people that lose their
Yeah,
health
yeah,
insurance then. Right.
5.1. So a total of about 13.7 or 14
Yeah.
million people. It'll be more,
Yeah.
because essentially, in both the food assistance and Medicaid instance, they're just cutting what they give to states,
Mm,
and they're saying, oh, the states will
right.
pick it up.
Right.
But obviously, the states don't have any extra money for this.
No.
They know
Right.
that. And then in our case, the case of Medicaid, they said, well, the states are going to have to pay for more. We're going to cut back on what we give the
Right.
states, which means they're gonna cut back. But they also then said, you can't touch the provider tax, which is what states use to
Right.
fund their portion of of Medicaid.
Right.
So they essentially gave them the ball and then tied both hands behind
Right.
their backs.
They froze that tax, right? Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's hard because these are things that most people, it's very hard to fight things when they're so in the weeds. So, for example, they're going to do these work requirements, right? And most people think, oh, well, work requirements,
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Good.
Everybody should have to work when they're on Medicaid. But
For
explain,
sure.
talk about that because people that really don't understand why work requirements are so problematic.
Yeah, I mean, food and health are in my mind a little bit different. You need both, and so I don't. In the world's richest country, people should have access to healthcare and food, regardless. But yes, personal responsibility and going out and getting a job is hugely important. It's really important for individuals. I mean,
Sure.
the dignity of work is like, I don't know where I'm not sure what, I've got a wife and kids, and they mean the world to me, but my work, not but, and my work
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
important. So I'm a big believer in work for work's sake. But what they're saying, and they know they tried this, so they got to see how this plays out in a couple of states, Georgia and Arizona and
Hmm.
Arkansas,
Hmm.
in particular. And what happens is the vast majority of people on Medicaid already
Mm.
work, unless they're disabled,
Mm.
and it covers a lot of disabled people. Um, or they're taking care of somebody who's disabled, because who else is going to take care of that person?
Right.
So the vast majority of people work. Now, what they're saying is uh, not that people should work as much as they're saying we want to create all of these scenarios where they constantly have to be telling us that they're working. And it's a level that they're essentially creating this new
Hmm.
bureaucracy
Hmm.
with all of this red tape and paperwork. And for a party that hates bureaucracy, they're doing it because they know it will reduce the rolls on Medicaid.
Right.
Or as one member in committee yesterday said, it'll allow us to clean up the rolls.
Yeah.
Um, and which is so heartbreaking when you think about a person who's now going to be completely fucked because they lost their health insurance. And if you were to say, oh, by the way, this was part of somebody cleaning up their roles, they needed to tidy them
Yeah.
up.
That's your life.
That's your
Yeah.
life. And it does, other members said this yesterday, but it is true. Like, it's about human worth, and they've decided that there are certain people who deserve, this is their language, they deserve to be on Medicaid, and then there are people who don't deserve it.
Yeah.
And same with Planned Parenthood. Like, women who get their health care from Planned Parenthood in this bill,
Mm.
if they're on Medicaid, they cannot use Planned Parenthood. Now, you cannot use Medicaid public money for an abortion or abortion care, anyways, and they
Right.
know that, but
Right.
they
This
don't
is
want you
pap
using.
smears, things like
Yeah, I
this,
mean,
right? This is, yeah.
like for 2 million women, healthcare they get a lot of their healthcare from Planned
Yeah.
Parenthood, and we all go to the place we trust, the place we
Mm.
like, that people know our names and they're like, oh, they know our medical history. And so, yeah, I mean, mammograms, I mean,
Everything.
everything. I mean, there's just and men use it. And then they're saying no, because we have a political beef with this organization. You cannot go there anymore.
Yeah.
So 1 million, because half of the women who go to Planned Parenthood for a majority of their health care can't go there. And you could say, oh, well, that seems wrong and mean and politically vindictive, but they can go somewhere else. Not always. And in fact, in many cases, the healthcare they get at Planned Parenthood is healthcare they can't get somewhere else.
Right.
And so then they have, and then they just, they're losing their healthcare. In any event, it's saying again to those people, we don't think you're worthy
Mm.
enough. Like, we, that your worth is somehow less than. It's just we're not gonna take it as seriously as we should if we thought you were worth a lot,
Hmm.
because we're willing to sort of put you and your healthcare over here because of our political vendetta, issue,
Yeah. Yeah.
grievance with an organization we
Right.
don't like.
Right. Yeah. And our desire to give billionaires back more of their money than they already have, which is really most of it already. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because the tax code favors the super wealthy, and one of the arguments I try to make in committee is like the economy's been broken for a long time. In my opinion, it's been fundamentally broken since the 90s. Like, we had a balanced budget, we had a tax system, and there was still this middle class that could pay its bills and still have money to retire or go on vacation. But then when George W. Bush got elected, they started to build this new tax
mm,
system that intentionally moves wealth to the top
Yeah.
and in a concentrated way. So there are several thousand people in this country that have most of the wealth because of this tax
Yeah.
code. And this bill will further that brokenness.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we saw the income inequality got way worse during Trump's first term, right? Because of the start of these tax cuts. And now we can just look forward to more of that if this passes. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and even though all of the bills passed out of committee along party lines last night, they need 218
Mm,
votes.
mm,
So if 4 or 5 of their members vote no, the bill dies, and presumably they would start over. And if they were smart, they would start over with
mm,
us, and we would build a tax relief with them. It would go to the vast majority of Americans, and yeah, the people at the top would pay a little more. And honestly, it's not even, I always say they should pay all their taxes and they should pay all their taxes. Uh, They, even the tax changes that are on the table where taxes would go up,
mm.
it doesn't go anywhere near, I mean, a place where they're paying taxes on all their wealth and income.
Right. Right.
I mean, it doesn't. So, there's a billionaire minimum tax proposal that would bring in $500 billion a year. That's the Musk task.
Hmm.
Like, why wouldn't you support that?
Hmm. Right.
Like,
Right.
just like that's just individuals who have billions and billions of
Yeah.
dollars. Uh, the corporate tax rate was 35% for a long time, and then they took it down to 21%.
Right.
Like, even if you just take it to 28%, that's $1.3 trillion a year, or sorry, over 10 years.
Mm.
And that is the exact amount of money, surely, because I had a lot of time in committee, 26 straight hours, so I played around with the math. The $1.3 trillion to take the corporate tax rate from 21 to 28, still lower than 35,
Yeah.
7% lower. So you just meet in the
Yep.
middle at 28%. That's $1.3 trillion. So let's go back and do the math. 230 billion in food assistance,
Mm.
plus 358 billion in ACA cuts, healthcare cuts, and then 715 billion in Medicaid cuts. That is $1.3 trillion.
Amazing.
You
Yeah.
literally change one
Yeah.
number in the corporate tax rate from 21 to 28, still 7% lower than it was 5 years
Yeah.
ago. And everyone keeps their health care, everyone keeps their food assistance, and everyone gets tax relief.
Right. And billionaires are still insanely rich.
By the
Like
way, in
they.
that instance, I didn't even touch billionaires.
Oh.
That's just big
Oh.
corporations.
That's.
If you add the minimum billionaire tax or the billionaire minimum
Yeah.
income tax, which I think is one of the most popular and important bills,
Right.
that's $500 billion. That pays for free community college. That pays for universal preschool. That pays for paid family and medical
Yeah.
leave. Pays for most of the housing work that we need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
That's
not
two
compre.
tax changes.
Yeah.
That's two. That's a one-page bill to
Yeah.
fix the economy.
It's not complicated. It really isn't. It's amazing. So talk to me because I saw right before I came on here something from Punchbowl saying that the Republicans were sort of delaying their markup for a week. Are they having, is there trouble in paradise? Are they, I know some Republicans want bigger cuts. And then I thought I saw that Mike Lawler had come out saying he maybe was going to vote against. So what's happening in there? What's the inside scoop? Do you know?
Yeah, there's um there's they only can lose a few members.
Yep.
They need 218. There are going to be a couple members who won't vote for this because it adds trillions of dollars to the debt and they're deficit hawks.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are some members who say they can't vote for it because it cuts Medicaid health care in a way that's just too much for them. It blows me away that there's even like one member who I really like said my red line is $500 billion in cuts to healthcare,
Wow.
and it's like, no, buddy, you're missing this argument. Like that's millions of people's
Yeah.
lives
Yeah.
unnecessarily. Anyway, so you have those two. Yeah, the group, the middle of the road Republicans who don't want to see Medicaid cuts, and then you have the deficit hawks. And it was always going to be hard for them to keep these people happy
Mm,
and on board. Um, and and I think the reason they're delaying it is because the president of the United States, who to this point, and maybe his numbers are in a place where my Republican colleagues will have a little bit more courage.
right.
Yeah, he's overseas and probably isn't making many phone calls because he's making clearly a lot of deals,
Deals. Yeah.
and in what will go down as the most corrupt trip in American presidential history,
Yes.
and obviously the biggest, most expensive bribe
Yeah.
in a $400 million private jet
Yeah.
from the Qataris to Trump. Um, so I suspect they're going to punt because they've got some folks sitting on the fence until Trump gets back. And then the question is, do they say to the president, look, I don't want to cross you, man. This is like, I feel like I should say this, maybe this will get picked up, but this is what Republicans would get a phone call from Trump should say.
Mm-hmm.
He said, Mr. President, I hear you, but if this fails, we can build one with Democrats, and it'll be even bigger and even more beautiful. And it'll be you who fixed it. It'll be you who saved everyone's Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be you who gave everyone tax relief. And you finally did what a lot of voters wanted, which was you made these billionaires pay.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
not the low income folks that we represent. Like you did that, so like let all you got to do is make the bill even bigger and more beautiful, and so let this bill die. That's what I would do.
Yeah. What do you think the chances are?
I mean, the one of the reasons why the economy is crashing uh, and we're all you know and people are being removed from the. I mean, he's pure
Yeah.
chaos, and he is entirely unpredictable,
Yeah.
and uh, honestly, probably in addition to corruption, these are the worst traits that you would want in a president, because the president of the United States really needs to just be somebody who's solid and reliable, consistent,
Yeah.
predictable. So he's unpredictable.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and talk about how that affects the economy, unpredictability, chaos, specifically economic forecasts, etc. How does it affect that?
Yeah. So it somebody I saw this morning tweeted that the markets are emotional, businesses aren't, and so even though the markets may feel a little bit better because uh, the tariffs in China have been adjusted or will be adjusted, businesses are still dealing with a global trade war,
Yeah.
and they are pulling back
Yeah.
because they can't count on what they need to count on in order to do business. And so you're going to see lending slow down. You're going to see hiring slow down. You're seeing it.
Mm.
It's just
Yeah.
not going to change.
Right.
I mean, he's already sort of detonated the uncertainty
Right.
bomb.
Right. 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 And then meanwhile, the manufacturing that one would want to see coming back to the country is not going to, right? Because people are not going to invest in new factories when they have no idea what the president's going to do tomorrow, let alone
Yeah,
anymore.
he'll get a few high profile deals, and so they'll, because he's a TV guy,
Mm,
right? So like, he knows how to do TV, and so it'll feel like for a minute, oh wait, this company's coming and that company's coming. God only knows what they got. We'll know eventually,
mm,
or how much they gave to the Trump meme coin, but it's not systemic. It's not part of a larger thing. I mean, most people are thinking about how they diversify
mm.
so they're less reliant on America because of how he's upended everything.
Right.
And when I went on a bipartisan trip with Hakeem Jeffries a couple weeks ago to Europe and the Middle East. Our allies in Europe, well, everywhere, but in Europe in particular, they said, "Look, everyone's trying to figure out how to do business, here or other places, because um, if American politics is going to become this
Right.
unreliable, we can't invest there."
Right. Right. Okay, well, on that cheery note, so I've got you for just another second. What, I am someone who is constantly telling people to call their representatives. So I really like to ask members of Congress when I talk to them, uh, does this work? Tell people who are skeptical about calling representatives, about different kinds of pressure, whether it's writing a letter, an email, going to the office. What works? Does it work? Is it working on your Republican colleagues? Does it work on you? Just tell us a little bit about that.
So for us, we try to pick up every call.
Yeah.
Uh, and if somebody goes to voicemail, I believe we call them back.
Wow.
It's record if they ask for a callback.
Yeah. If they ask for a callback,
That's great.
sorry. But then we send everyone a letter. And I review the
Uh-huh.
letters. Sometimes I'll write them myself, but we have a great writer who does the letters, and then, yeah, I look at a log every Friday. I believe I get an email, and it says here are all the calls that came in, and here's the subjects. And it does. I would hope that all members do that.
Mhm.
See who's calling about what and what they're saying. Um, I suspect most do. I think that I just I also think going on to social media and speaking your mind. I think showing up to events. I think, uh, you know, uh, uh, writing a letter to the
Mhm.
editor in your local paper. I mean, I just think all that matters. And I obviously there needs to be more
Mm,
at the top,
mm,
and I'm one of the folks pushing for more.
mm.
um, because I think people would like to have a better sense as to what sort of the coordinated, because strategic thing is. But I will say, and that needs to happen, and it's starting to come together finally. But
So let me interrupt you. What do you think that looks like? What does that more look like to you?
so it's a national, sort of an independent from existing
Hmm.
organizations, because existing organizations have a body of work they already have to deal with.
Hmm.
Um, so and whether it's the DNC or for them the RNC, the D triple,
Right.
there's a bunch of stuff they have to do. This would be more like, and I've proposed this internally and have written this up, and we'll try to get it published in the next week or two. But it's like when a city goes after the Olympics, they
Mm,
set up a new organization,
mm,
and and they get really amazing leaders to lead it.
mm.
That's what I'm proposing, is a new national effort to build the broadest coalition of people. So it wouldn't be partisan. It would be about fixing the economy and fixing our democracy, and you know um, and changing what's happening here,
Mm.
because it's broken,
Yeah.
and I think that's going to require a national organization with national strategies that help people all over the country get into or be part of, fixing this, and for lack of a better name, just call it the fixing it committee. It's like,
Mm.
this is the committee to fix it. This is the committee to fix
I
this.
I love that. Sign me up. I think that is a fantastic idea, and I do think people are very, very hungry for that. So I hope you can make it
Me
happen.
too.
I am Godspeed with that. We need it.
All
We
right.
do.
I know. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us, and I really enjoyed it. I hope we'll talk to you again. Thank you for fighting the good
Anytime.
fight out there, and yeah, just keep on keeping on. We are really grateful that you guys are fighting to save healthcare and all the rest of it.
Thanks.
So,
Thanks for all you're doing too.
Representative Landsman, thank you very much. Have a good
Greg.
day. All right,
Okay.
bye everybody.
Bye.
See you later.